Hi there, I'm Jim Kerr from Simple Minds, and this is Records in My Life.
Sir, thank you very much for being on the show. We appreciate it.
My pleasure. Thanks for inviting me, yeah.
Can you tell us what's new and exciting in the world of Simple Minds?
It's very exciting because this year we released a new album back in the start of the year, and both critically and commercially in many places far went beyond our expectations, and that was great. So the subsequent tour that we're now on has taken us all through Europe, through UK, North America, where we haven't been for the longest time. So we're about 6 months in and really just enjoying every night, trying to make every gig count. We play every gig as though it was the first and last gig on earth. And that attitude has kept us in good faith.
So Walk Between Worlds, the latest release.
Yeah.
Can you give us a bit about the inspiration behind the record? Did you work with any outsiders on it?
Well, I mean, still Charlie Burchill, my songwriting partner, right. Guitar player. The thing people don't really know is that Charlie's a hell of a keyboard player. And Charlie came up with a lot of the early ideas, as he always does. But I could tell that the direction he was on was, I felt the direction he was on was exactly where we should be. For me, Charlie had just hit the target. And so the songs, the style of the songs evoke the great Simple Minds from the past, but there's a vitality about everything that belies the fact that we've been around the block a few times.
Since 77.
Yeah, it's a big block.
Yeah. Let's go back to those days. Now, what bands were inspiring you back in the day, like bands from Glasgow or Scotland?
Yeah.
Essentially from that geographic location.
Well, the thing is, I mean, some local people get upset when I say this because over the years, there's been so much music came out of Glasgow and so many bands, and it's amazing. But believe me, when we were coming through, it was a desert. And the reason it was a desert was that back then, prior to us coming through, prior to punk, everyone had to leave town to go to London. When punk came and independent labels came and all that, it was great because the music industry got a bit decentralized. There was scenes in Manchester, scenes in Sheffield, scenes in Liverpool. You didn't all have to go to London because up until then, a lot of Scottish bands, great musicians, would go to London. It was expensive. They would be away from home. Within a month, they would get hacked off, split up, break up. So not only did they not, a lot of them, very few of them actually succeeded, but it also meant that there was nothing in Glasgow because everyone felt they had to go. Right. So we lucked out when we were coming up. The whole punk thing had arrived and it changed that mentality. So it meant that we could stay in Glasgow. So therefore, we were point A, and everything followed on from us. And if anyone wants to fight about that,
that's fantastic.
Come ahead, because that's the way we see it. But I might be exaggerating a little bit.
That's fantastic, though. That's honesty. You know, honesty is key.
There was a couple in the slipstream 2 months later or something, but 2 months back then was like years.
Okay, I'm sure that you had an album that there must have been. Okay, so they're not Scottish bands, not Scottish albums, but bands that you listened to, which you learned from side A and the side B. Which records would you say you first learned along to play to or sing?
Well, you use the right word there when you say learning, because both being able to buy albums. We Charlie and I got jobs after school. my job was cleaning the back store of a butcher's shop. I've been a vegetarian ever since. It's not a glamorous job, believe me. However, I got paid £5 a week. So this was like 2 hours after school on a Saturday. £5 a week, I was like Frank Sinatra, because an album was like 80 pence, less than £1. A concert ticket, the first one that I bought was David Bowie's Ziggy Stardust tour, 60 pence.
Wow.
I could take you and your girlfriend to the concert if you like. I was, and Charlie and I, so we got to see everybody that was coming through. And that year, I'm talking 73, end of 72, 73, start of 73, for the next 3 or 4 years, all we did was go to gigs, and all we did was buy albums. If you were to put me on the spot and say what was the first album I bought, it was Electric Warrior by T-Rex. Yeah. And Charlie blew me away, because around that time his mum got him his first guitar, and with a couple of weeks he could play every song on the album. I realise now that it's all bluesy songs, it's only 2 or 3 chords, but that's rock and roll. And that was really, that was the point A for us. Of course, we thought Mark Bolan was Jesus. We realised he was actually John the Baptist, that Jesus was coming in the shape of Ziggy Stardust about a year later. And but that was the start. And then, of course, you know, so all that whole glam rock thing, and then the great prog rock thing we loved. The second concert I saw was Foxtrot with Peter Gabriel,
right,
leading Genesis. Yes. Charlie saw Zeppelin, Alice Cooper, Roxy Music, Lou Reed. I remember a guy at school coming up to me and saying, and I can't, to this day, I thank him. He said, "Do you want to go to a gig tonight?" And I said, "Who is it that's playing?" He said, "I don't know, it's Reggae music." And I said, "Reggae music?" Mm-hmm. And he said, "Yeah, Reggae." I said, "What's Reggae?" And he said, "Oh, kind of funky." I said, "I'll go and see anyone." Lo and behold, it was Bob Marley.
Wow.
And we didn't know. It was one of his first tours. It was Bob Marley. And even though I didn't know, I knew I was in the presence of something amazing. So we were taking all this in and just, you know, possessed by this idea of music and bands and all that stuff. It was the only thing in town. There was nothing, well, it was football, and we liked that too, but once we saw that, then there was no going back.
Are there any modern, let's skip to the modern day, are there any bands that have piqued your interest these days?
I mean, I have to say, right now, this is one of those periods where, you think, oh, the tide's gone out and it's never coming back in. It's been a while since I've heard anything that really done me in. But you think that, and then the next year, 3 or 4 things. I mean, probably a couple of years ago, 2 or 3 years ago, when I think the last great American band, War on Drugs, I'm hesitant to say the last great Canadian band because they'll kill me, but Arcade Fire are still... Yeah. I went to see them in Glasgow recently, and it was off the scale good.
Great live band.
Off the scale. I think the problem is the circuits are not there now for bands to learn their trades. You know, the pubs, the clubs, the dingy basements in the middle of cities. Real estate is so expensive. All that stuff's gone. And if you don't have that, in England you could go up and down. We went up and down the motorway as the Rolling Stones did, as the Who did, as the Kinks did, as the Beatles did. You went up and down that motorway, and you learned your trade playing universities and all that stuff. The circuit's not there, so therefore rock and roll, as in bands as we know it, I think are increasingly, they're diminishing numbers, and that's part of the problem. But just as I say that, I'm sure someone amazing is about to come along.
Yeah, it's interesting you say that. I mean, like the Kinks too. The show's not about me, but Ray Davies was talking about growing up playing skiffle bands in tiny pubs with his brother, and he's
absolutely. Well, bringing it to Canada, I remember when Canada was, no one takes offense in the States when I say this. Canada was always ahead of the game. The attitude from the media here, and it was always much more European in its outlook, and so therefore so many bands broke through in Canada first, and certainly we were encouraged in Canada long before many other places, and which meant that it was great to come first of all and play in Toronto, Vancouver for sure was great to us, Montreal. But then we got to the Saskatoons and the Saskatchewans, and it was like, I've never seen flatness like this in my life. I'm getting agoraphobia. It's like, wow, but we learned our chops playing in those places. That's where first of all, you learn if you got the guts for it. You turn up in Saskatoon, there's two men and a dog, and the dog leaves halfway through. That's when you.
That's great.
That's when you find out if you've got the guts for it.
That's terrific. I'm going to put you on the spot here. What's a flawless record for you? What would you consider?
That's a great question. It's very much of the moment because it's just been re-box setted, but Bob Dylan's Blood on the Tracks is flawless. Van Morrison's Astral Weeks. There would be a Marvin Gaye one there as well. Stevie Wonder's got 2 or 3 flawless ones. They spring to mind.
All right, thank you very much. One more quick question. Really appreciate your time. What album would you love to have been a fly on the wall for the recording sessions?
You know what? The great thing is recently with all the documentaries, they find footage of the Beatles and they find footage of the Rolling Stones and all that stuff. And I would love to have been a fly on the wall because I feel I was a fly on the wall with Born to Run. Bruce Springsteen's album, and the reason I feel I was a fly on the wall is that Jimmy Iovine, who produced our album Once Upon a Time, and we pumped Jimmy for every story. Well, we didn't even have to pump him. He would refer to it. He would refer to it in a great way. When you were just about to give up or something, he would say, wow, or when you had got really down, or he would refer to it. So we kind of, but nevertheless, I would love, because they were within that of losing it. He a year in, he only had one song, and he couldn't even get that right in his own mind, and the record company were giving him all the pressure, and if that album didn't work, the game was up. So with all of that at stake, and him being the way he is with that intensity, Iovine's nuts as well, and all Steve Van Zandt turning up. It would have been something, and so that would have been, I'd love to have been there.
Fantastic. Thanks. We'd like to ask our guests one last question, some words of wisdom or advice for our audience.
Punch above your weight. Just get at it. Take it by the scruff of the neck.
Sonic Goose.
Thank you so much for watching, and please subscribe.
And if you're really feeling it, please hit us up on Patreon. Cheers.